Bienvenidos a Trascendencia en Acción. Soy la doctora Xochitl Yadira. En este podcast exploraremos el proceso activo de ir más allá de nuestras limitaciones personales, sociales y profesionales para alcanzar un nivel superior de comprensión y existencia. Únete a nosotros mientras discutimos estrategias y compartimos historias inspiradoras que demuestran cómo la trascendencia se manifiesta en acciones concretas, llevando a un camino real y significativo. Descubre cómo puedes trascender tus límites y vivir una vida llena de propósito y realización. Las opiniones expresadas por los invitados en este podcast son propias y no representan necesariamente la opinión de la doctora Xochitl Yadira ni de Trascendencia en Acción. Welcome to Trascendencia en Acción. I'm Dr. Xochitl Yadira. In this podcast, we explore the active process of going beyond our personal, social, and professional limitations to reach a higher level of understanding and existence. Join us as we discuss strategies and share inspiring stories that demonstrate how transcendence manifests in concrete actions, leading to real and significant changes. Discover how you can transcend your limits and live a life full of purpose and fulfillment. The opinions expressed by the guests on this podcast are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of Dr. Xochitl Yadira or Trascendencia en Acción. Buenas tardes, buenos días, buenas noches, la hora que sea que nos esté sintonizando. Muy contenta de estar en otro episodio más de Trascendencia en Acción. Este episodio lo vamos a hacer en inglés porque tengo una muy querida amiga conmigo y tal como muchos de los que hacemos, quiero que fluya, quiero que sea cómodo tanto para ella como para mí, pero pues tendremos traducciones y no se les olvide poner el subtítulo en su propia plataforma. So I'm gonna get started. Thank you so much for being here, Patty. I am so excited to have you.
You're so sweet. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited that you reached out to me. I love it. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so glad. So we're going to get deep today, right? But before we get to that, I want to make sure that people know who Patty Checa is because you are such a wealth of knowledge in the fashion industry. You're a people connector. You're a community connector. You're that amiga that everyone wants to have in their corner. And you have really become an inspiration for a lot of women, Latinas, non-Latinas, everyone really coming to Milwaukee because of your own experience. So let's start by talking a little bit about who you are, where you're from, why Milwaukee?
So I actually born and raised in Los Angeles. My parents are both from Mexico. I'm a California girl 100%. I always say that, you know, I'm a California girl living in a Wisconsin world, okay? It's like we came here 9 years ago for my husband's job. And honest to God, I really thought we were only going to be here 5 years. I told my husband, I'm going to stay 5 years and then we're out of here.
I think it's everybody.
Right.
Here, we're like, I'm just here for a year or
two.
Right.
But I have to say, I've fallen in love with Milwaukee. I love where I live. I love our lifestyle. Love the summers. I just love the change in seasons here. I love everything that's happening during the summer. And honestly, I think we're going to stay here for a little bit. I don't know how long. I do all our families in LA, including my daughter. So that was really hard for me when I left because she actually went off to college. She didn't want to move with us. So she's still there. So I always say that half of my heart is in LA.
Yeah.
But we do go back quite often. So I feel like I get the best of both worlds, right? I go back to California. I come back here. But I do love Milwaukee. So yeah, totally born and raised over there. And yeah.
That is quite a change. And I always talk about this because I'm originally from Veracruz, Mexico.
Okay.
And I've been here my whole life. I mean, I came when I was 12 and every year I'm like, why am I still here? Because I do not like the cold weather. I like when it starts snowing, you know, like the season change, like you said. But when it gets like low, I don't like it. And so I always say I want to move to California or to like Florida or somewhere down warm because I am solar. I cannot handle the cold. So how was that coming here for you?
Gosh.
I mean, it had to be
crazy.
A big thing, right?
Okay, so California, first of all, we don't have humidity. Average is like 70, 75, like literally year round, right? Cold to us is 60 degrees. So when it's 60, we're in puffers. We're in beanies. We're in boots. We think it's freezing, right? So the adjustment in the beginning was really hard, right? I remember Googling like how to adjust to the cold weather. I remember Googling like, okay, what do I wear? Where do I buy it? Like I knew not, I think I owned maybe 2 coats. Oh. And I remember my realtor telling me, Patty, how many coats do you own? I said, I think 2. He's like, okay, yeah, just an FYI, you're going to own like more than 50. I'm not kidding, because it's like you wear one in October, and then November you wear another one, then November is another one, and then January, February it's another one. So it was hard in the beginning, and then I have to say 9 years later, it's crazy because when it's 60, I'm like, woo, like I'm good, right? I don't need a big heavy jacket anymore. So I've definitely gotten used to it. I have to say, I love the snow. I love the winters. I just feel like they're a little too long for me. Oh, yeah. And I don't like the darkness.
They're not little. They're very long.
They're super long. They're like too long. Yeah. So I always say like, it's like, okay, I can handle 2-3 months. And then after that, I'm kind of like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
So I remember people telling me, my neighbors saying, hey, you know, you want to get out of here like in March and like, you know, like maybe February. So that's usually what we do. We always go to a warm place around that time. But yeah, I just feel like the darkness is a little hard for me. I feel like I'm used to sunshine. I'm used to sun. So, but I have to say I've adjusted and I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you start like getting into a groove, because I do the same.
Right.
Like it's November and I'm already planning where am I escaping. As soon as like the first cold hits, like I'm like, January, where are we going for the weekend? February, where are we hitting? Because I can. But and beyond, obviously, the weather adjustment, you share a little bit about that, leaving your daughter behind. How was that dynamic? Like, do you have family here? Does your husband have family? How was that transition?
Okay, so the only one, so it was my husband, my son, and myself that moved out here. Wow. My son was 14, going into the 8th grade, and I have to say it was really hard for him.
Yeah.
And we came, I'll never forget, we came July 1st. We flew in on July 1st. My husband's company, which I have to say, I'm going to do a shout out. My husband's been with Costco for 35 years.
Wow.
His only job he's ever had. And that's why we moved, because they were building 2 new Costco's in Wisconsin. They were building,
which I love.
I believe, I'm like, who doesn't love Costco? So they were opening Pewaukee and I believe Menominee Falls. So he was running the Grafton store, and now he's running the New Berlin store, and they pretty much move him around.
Oh, that's the one that goes right with my house.
Okay, so you have to look for him.
Awesome.
So that's what. Sorry, you lost me on the question. Sorry.
No, like family.
Right. Okay,
family here.
So just the 3 of us moved out here. All our family, like all my brothers, my mom, my grandma, my tias, mis primas, everybody's in California.
Oh, wow.
We do have a lot of family in Mexico, but the immediate, like my siblings, everybody's in LA. My husband's immediate family, all his brothers and sisters are in California. So when we came, they thought we were crazy. They were like, why are you guys leaving?
I think you're crazy.
Right.
But I love that you're crazy here.
But the funny thing is, people always ask me, why did you move from California here?
Yeah.
They honestly, the first thing they say, it must be for your husband's job or something. I'm like, yes. Right. So that's what moved us here. I have to say, and I think it's so important to share my story, because I feel like a lot of people go through stuff and they kind of like suffer in silence. They don't really talk about it. When we moved, honest to God, I didn't want to leave. I, at one point, was literally thinking, I'm like, no, I'm not leaving. I'm going to just tell my husband to go by himself, and then I'll just visit him every so often. But at the time, I had some amazing women in my life from my church. I used to go to this Bible study group with amazing women. And honestly, because of them, I'm here, because they're the ones that are like, Patty, just know that God has a plan for your life. Yeah. And there's like, you have to just trust and have faith that he's putting you there for a reason. And at the time, I was like, I don't know why, but I'm going to trust and I'm going to believe and I'm going to have faith. And I know that I'll be able to share this with other women. I remember my pastors telling me, like, Patty, one day you're going to have a testimony for other women. I'm like, I know, one day. But honestly, like, I was crying a lot. Mm-hmm. I lived in our house for 18 years, right? So I raised my kids there. My daughter was 18. She was going away to college. Sebastian was 14. And I just was like, okay, how, and I'm not going to lie. I questioned God. I was like, why would you do that to us?
Right.
Why would you remove me from my family? Why, like my daughter's going to be here. She doesn't even want to go with us. She's going to go away to college. I love my church so much. So why would you remove me from them?
Yeah.
So I had all these questions, but at the end of the day, I was like, something in my heart was like, Patty, just go with it. And if you don't like it, just tell your husband, hey, you want to come back? So I honestly did tell him, I'm like, listen, I'm going to give it a year. And then if I don't like it, we're going to have to come back.
Yeah.
And then now we're here 9 years later.
Oh my God. And talk about being driven by a purpose. And sometimes this is something we talk a lot in previous episodes, where often through life, there's proofs and there's things that come along the way and you don't know why, right? You question not just your faith, you question everything around it, but then deep down, something moves you, right?
Right.
And how amazing, right? What you've created and what's coming, we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. And I want to emphasize this part because your story is very similar to the millions of immigrants that come to this country. Like I was an immigrant, right? And till this day, literally the only immediate family that I have here is like my kids, my family, right?
Right.
My brother lives in Monterey, so we see each other so often because we visit. We have the privilege of being able to travel back and forth. Many don't, right? And so even breaking up those familiar, even just driving down the street to see my tia or, things like that, would you say you still miss that? And what parts of that do you try to bring with you and within to keep you going?
Right. So I remember like thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so used to my mom and just doing a lot for us, for my kids. And then I'm very close to my grandmother, very close, where I just love her to death. And so for me, I was like, oh my gosh, like she's getting older. That, like, I don't know why, but for me, it was her. It was just like, oh my God, like I'm going to miss her so much. It was just, honestly, I was like, okay, what am I going to do if something were to happen? And like, I don't know, like you're so used to calling your mom, my brothers. My brothers used to help me a lot with my kids. So I'm like, how am I going to do all this when I need somebody for something? Like, I can't just call my brothers or my mom or my grandmother. Like, who do I call, right?
Yeah.
So I just have to say that this is one thing, and I love to share this because I feel like a lot of women that are going through this, sometimes they're going through like sad times, right? And they just think like, oh my God, like I just feel like I'm in this dark place and I just don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I remember thinking, okay, because I'm usually pretty much a very happy person, a very positive person.
Yeah, we're very positivist.
Right. I don't like to like just be negative or sad. So I said, okay, Patty, and I literally was talking to myself. I'm like, okay, you're either going to be super negative and sit here and focus on all the negative things, or you're going to think positive and like focus on all the blessings, and you're going to start making friends and you're going to start building like community and you're going to start doing, and I'm like, okay, Patty, like snap out of it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. For the first few months, I was crying a lot by myself. I didn't want to cry in front of my husband. I didn't want to cry in front of Sebastian because my husband was so excited about his promotion. I didn't want to ruin that. And I didn't want my son to like be like, oh my God, and worry about it. So I'm like, so there was moments I would cry and then I'm like, okay, just like, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. So I just felt like, okay, met my neighbors. My neighbors were great. Like they literally came. I was like, okay, first of all, in California, this doesn't happen.
Right.
They were literally knocking on my door the first day I moved in and they're like, hey, welcome to Bayside. And literally brought me like, brownies and cupcakes and cookies. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm in a movie. Yeah. From the 80s, like movies that I watched back in the 80s,
like
where
Fine, You Won
like
Me
the
Over.
Beaver Cleaver kind of like vibe. I was like, okay, I've known my neighbors in California for 18 years, but that wasn't really how it was over there. Right. So I definitely feel that there's definitely like a Midwest thing that is definitely different than California. Yeah. So I started connecting with my neighbors, which was amazing. I remember them inviting me to the block party. So I started connecting that way. And then as you know, then the next thing was, okay, how am I going to meet Latinas? And like how? Because I live in the North Shore and Bayside, I didn't see a lot of Latinas. Right. I was like, okay, where are the Latinos? Like where?
Yeah.
And then I remember somebody saying to me, like, oh, Milwaukee's very segregated. And I'm like, huh? I didn't know that.
Right.
My husband knew it, but he didn't want to tell me that because he knew that I would probably have a hard time with that. Now, remember, California is a melting pot of so many beautiful nationalities. I grew up mixture of people, a lot of Mexicanos, a lot of Mexicans, a lot of African Americans, Asians, Filipinos, Hawaiians, like everybody. So when I moved here, of course, I noticed it in Bayside. I'm like, okay, I don't really see a lot of people like me. How am I going to connect with people like me, right? How am I going to find a community of women, right? So that I can network. So I started researching Latina networking groups, Latina, this and that. Couldn't find it. So then I was like, okay, I had actually a networking group when I had my store in California. I had a store called Checa Chic Boutique, which is a cute little boutique with clothing, handbags, and everything. I used to host monthly events, and the group was called Fabulous Women Connect.
Aww.
But it was a mixture of women. It wasn't just for Latinas because in LA, that to me was just how we do things. It's normal. Yeah. But when I came here, I'm like, I'll be honest, I was like, okay, it's very white here. Or I'm like, where I need to see colorful people.
Give me the map of the diversity.
Right. So then people are like, oh, on the south side, that's where you go to the Mexican stores, on this side. And I'm like, huh? Like, honestly, I'm not going to lie. I had culture shock.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I was very sad about that. I didn't realize that that's how it was here. So I was like, oh, I don't know what happened to me, Xochitl, but I was like, you know what? And by that time I was kind of already meeting some people, and the people were like, you need to meet Andrea from Mi Voz.
Yeah.
And she's like family to me now. And I was like, okay. And I remember literally reaching out to her through Instagram. And she was like, oh, I'm having this event at my house. Come over. I went over, met a bunch of women there, a bunch of Latinas. And so then that's kind of where it started. But then I was like, okay, but we need something for us.
Right.
Which I never felt that way in LA. But I felt it. I felt like how we need a networking group for Latinas so we can come together, support one another, share our businesses, make great connections. So for me, it was more like, hey, Milwaukee, wake up. Like there's a lot of amazing, beautiful Latinos, businesses that are here, and we need a community. Like we need to start building this, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what started that path for the Latinas Connect Milwaukee.
Which is interesting because I hear you say that, right? Like I've been here my whole life, over 25 years here, right?
Right.
And I even just thinking back 9 years ago, I'm like processing and I'm listening and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess because I grew up on the South Side. For me, it's the opposite. Like what do you mean, right? What do you mean? Like there wasn't Latinos, all of the South Side is Latinos, but in introspective, I moved to Franklin 7 years ago because of my kids and we outgrew our home and all of that, right? And I saw that when we first moved. I mean, it's a suburb, so it was very non-diverse.
Right.
And it's funny because a couple of days ago, we had the open house for my youngest at their school, and now we start seeing that diversity. So it's almost like people from the South Side are now spreading into other suburbs, but that's not too long ago. And we have had small communities of others trying to bring us together, but it always, at least to me personally, felt like unless you're part of a business network or unless you're part of a specific niche and that's what I love about what you've created. Like it doesn't matter what you bring.
Right.
The fact that you're Latina, the fact that you want to come together and have friends to lean on.
Right.
That's enough. And I've been part of the community for many years, but I did feel even the segregation within our own communities. Oh my
God, Xochitl, that's exactly how I felt.
And it's like,
exactly
in order to be part of that circle, I have to be a professional. In order to be part of that circle, I have to own a business. And so let's talk about Latinas Connect, right? So you saw the need.
It's funny that what you just said, because I feel like it's crazy. What you're saying right now is exactly what I say.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
But
I love it.
I didn't internalize it that way until you said it right now. But I'm thinking and I'm like, Oh yeah, that's why I never, because a lot of people tell me, how come you've never been on? I'm like, I always been part of the community, but I've never really operated in that fashion because I felt like I didn't belong enough because at the time I didn't have a degree, or because at the time I didn't have a business, or because it's almost like you have to know the club to get in the club kind of thing, right? So I love what you've started and the vision, right? Because look at, like, it takes, and I'm going to preface this, it takes courage. It takes braveness, but it takes a vision to come up with things like Latinas Connect.
Right.
Because everyone can have an idea. It's the execution of making it happen that really holds the power.
Right.
So you saw the idea, you saw the vision. How did you start?
Right. So then I was just, again, it's crazy that you're saying all this, because I'm like, I'm sure other women feel that way.
Yeah.
I felt that way.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I felt exactly what you just said. I was like, okay, the one group that I was introduced to at the time was, I was invited by Andrea to the HPGM gala. Mm-hmm. So I went to that, but I'm like, okay, but I'm not a professional. I'm actually a creative. Mm-hmm. I'm a wardrobe stylist. I've been in fashion my whole life. I'm a creative person, right? So I was like, well, I'm not really a business. I'm not, that's not, so that's
corporate feeling.
Right. And so I didn't feel that. And I thought, okay, for me, it was like for me, honestly, and I am, people have said, oh my God, you're Patty, you're a connector. You're like a rainmaker. Mm-hmm. I was like, when they said rainmaker, I'm like, what do you mean by that? So I was like, okay, they're like, oh my God, you connect. And I do, I love connecting women. Yeah. Like, I'm the type that people text me all the time. Do you know this person that does this? I will give you a list of a person that does anything.
You're
makeup,
the Latina
hair.
Yellow Pages.
I'm the Latina
pages.
Yellow Pages. I am like, call me, and whatever you need, I will find somebody for you, because I just know everybody. My thing is, I love more than anything, connecting Latina women in our community and building a strong community within us, because I felt here in Milwaukee, again, I didn't feel this way in LA.
Yeah.
Here I felt that I'm like, oh my God, how can we support each other and not, like, I don't know anybody and I'm feeling like I need to connect. That's period. I need to feel like I need to make a connection in my community. Not only that, but I felt that it was important for me to have this group so that people outside of our community could be like, oh my God, these girls they're badasses.
Yeah.
They do a lot of things.
Yeah.
They're doctors.
Yeah.
They're this, they're lawyers, there's designers, there's hair and I mean, there's so many things, right? I feel like sometimes they don't realize how talented we are and what we do.
Yeah.
And we do a lot. We do everything, actually.
Yeah. And I'm glad you bring that up, because I feel like we've come a long way, right?
Right.
Let's acknowledge that.
Right.
However, I do feel like by design, our culture is, and this is more pre-generation on where we are today,
right,
tend to be like, hush, hush, let the work show itself, or don't put it out there. And to your point, we're in a time and period right now in society that unless we have platforms that often put us in the places we need to be, or showcase the talents or people, the community, like, did you know this, right?
Right.
Then how are we supposed to empower others if we don't talk about this, if we don't give visibility, if we don't provide a platform? And that's the power I hear in what you started creating, because although there's always been this talent, but again, unless you were part of certain platforms, I feel like, and I remember going to like the early galas or the early events, it was always the same group of people that you would see there. And it wasn't until recent years, and I was like, okay, let me get out of there. And then I started seeing, I'm like, holy cow, the potential of what we have just here in Milwaukee. Right. And then you start hearing the statistics and the power that Latino have, not just in the economy, but in the U.S. and everything that's right. So sometimes one thing that you think about that we are silenced about opens up such a big door,
right,
which is what you've done.
Right.
So you create Latinas Connect. You have a large presence now in social media. Talk a little bit what that has been. And I'm a fan, because I always see, to your point, like, all the posts of people asking things. And sometimes when I think, I'm like, oh, I need this, I just know. Go to Latinas Connect. Somebody probably posted something about it, right?
Right.
So what has that been for you, that experience?
With the social media?
Yeah.
So, it's crazy. I have to say, I'm like a one-man show. I'm always looking for volunteers, right?
Yeah.
To come and join Latinas Connect, because it's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot managing the Facebook page. It's a lot managing the Instagram page. It's a lot even planning the events. I mean, I love to do it all, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So the social media part of it, I love, like during the summer, I have to say, and I'm sure some people miss this, but I'm like, hey, listen, I'm going to take a little break during the summer because my priority is my family, right? And I need to enjoy my summers here, right? Like it go by so fast.
All of us.
Right. So the social media is great because, as you know, we have that Facebook page. And there's, I think, over 2,000 girls on that Facebook page.
Wow.
And then there's over 1,500, I believe, on the Instagram page. So on the Facebook page, it's private group. I ask a few questions before you come on in. And basically, you can post on there once a day and you can share your business. You can share an event. You can share whatever, like anything. And again, going back to what you just mentioned earlier, you don't have to be a business owner to be on Latinas Connect.
Right.
That's not what it's about. Latinas Connect is about connecting with other Latina women in our community. The other thing I want to also talk about that is very important to me. I have a lot of friends that aren't Latina and they want to join the page. And I said, you can join the page. And I want you to share. And they're like, but how are the other, I go, don't worry about that.
Right.
Listen to me. We need to support each other.
Yeah.
I created this page because I was new to Milwaukee. I knew no one and I wanted to make connections, right? But you are welcome to share on there, please. And it's I feel like I love it because there's so many things, random things on there. One thing is, if you need something, if you're like, oh my God, I need a facial. If you go up to the bar at the little circle, you just enter facials and somebody will pop up for you, right? So it's just a great way to support other women in our community. I mean, I love to do that. Like this girl just posted, I think last week, she is making healthy shakes. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to do a cleanse.
Right.
Let me buy 5 of those green detox from her. I don't even know who she is. I went, I'm like, okay, I'll come pick them up. I went to her home. I think it was her sweet mother that gave them to me. And that made me feel good because I'm like, okay, I'm not going to the store to Whole Foods to pick up a freaking green detox.
Which is not really green, let's be honest.
Right. So I'm like, and I'm supporting a Latina.
Yeah.
And this mom, obviously she works because she told me she was at work and that I'm going to pick them up from her mom. That's what I love, right?
Yeah.
So the social media is great. The Instagram, it's a work in progress. Again, I'm saying this right now. If you ever want to be a part of it and volunteer, please DM me.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for people to kind of help me out with my page because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
As you know, it's a lot of work. But I want to go back to what you said because I feel like it's crazy that you're saying this and I feel the same way, that you felt that even within our own community, I felt segregated. Xochitl, I felt the same way.
Yeah.
I was like, and I would talk to Andrea about this, I'm like, because, she's been here a long time. I'm like, I feel that we're even segregated within our own Latina community. And there's all these groups. And if you're not part of this group, it's like it's weird. And it's almost like Mean Girls Club, or I don't know what it is. It's like, and it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
It should be that we need to all support one another. And by the way, I want to say something to you.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people have told you this. First of all, thank you for being literally, I feel like you are one of the Latinas in our community that I feel like you support everybody. And I see you at almost every event. I'm like, okay, this Xochitl needs an award. We need to create an award for her because you are so supportive of everybody. I see you at everything. And I just feel like, listen, I don't know if I sometimes want to say, is it culturally how we were raised? Our parents maybe taught I don't know. I'll be honest with me, the way I was raised, I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't raised that oh no, there's only enough for us. No. My mom was like, oh no, there's enough for everybody, right?
My abuelita used to say, if there's a cazuela de frijoles, we add more water so everybody can eat.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. So I feel that. And I think that we need to get better in Milwaukee. Listen, I've been here 9 years.
Yeah.
We Latinas need to get better here in Milwaukee to open our minds a little bit, not just support everybody and not feel that there's not enough.
Right.
Because there's enough to go around for everybody.
Yeah.
And if we support each other, the stronger we're going to be. I mean, there's so many things that we could, it's just crazy. I feel like, and I'm almost like, I literally have this conversation with Andrea all the time. And it drives me bananas. I'm not going to lie. And I'm like, okay, listen, I don't know, maybe California's a different vibe, but it wasn't this way in California.
Yeah.
But I felt it here.
I would say it's definitely a Midwest thing. And that's
so you don't think it's a cultural thing?
It's definitely. So I was going to go there. It's a blend of the Midwest, but it's a lot more carrying our culture. And part of the reason I feel, and this is why I guess I'm also thank you for that. That's why I do it, right? Because to me, it's like, and I'll say it bluntly, I don't care about titles. I don't care about accomplishments. You can be the president of the U.S. and I don't give a damn. If you're not a good human being, I'm sorry, I have no respect for you, period. And so when I saw that, at least in Mexico, the way in Mexico works and operates, whether you're a professional, I see the difference of the professional world is very much like that. Like if you're not part of, I think that there's a movie called The Godines and the Somethings that really talks about that either you're part of the big circle or you're not. And then if you're part of a rancho, then you're sought out as to be less than. Or if you're part of the city, no, you're all that. Or if you're part, right? And it's like this cultural break. It's almost like, why are we bringing that here to the U.S.? Because at the end of the day, we all came here for a dream.
Right.
We all have the same opportunities.
Right.
And I will emphasize, I was an immigrant for many years. I didn't have my papers, so I saw and felt the struggles of like, I couldn't get back to school right after high school because I didn't have papers. So I was paying out of pocket, and then I got pregnant and I dropped off. But I was like, how many kids have a dream to keep going to school and they can't because they don't have the papers? Or how many families can't even get a decent job because they don't have the papers? And then you add the dimension of like, once you made it, let's ignore the rest. And let's be like, oh no, now I'm not part of that anymore, right? So I started seeing that. And to me, I feel like that's where I am with you. Like we are in a different time right now in a movement of like, we need to just embrace everyone and anyone at any level of their lives. Whether somebody as a stay-at-home mom, I cannot tell you how many friends are going through something right now that are stay-at-home moms that people will see them and they think of like, oh my God, they're so happy. They're a stay-at-home mom and they're going through so much. It's like an own capsule, right? And then you have a lot of us that are in the corporate world and we have our own battles. Like, man, we're going through so much, right? And try to fit in. And then we have people in our community. I follow a lot of our friends in mercaderas, right? Their dreams, like they're helping doing, the same mission that you started here.
Right.
And I love that. So I also want to thank you for that because I don't know if you've internalized the power of what you've created and the fact that you're opening this for other generations. I definitely want to invite others join in and help Patty in this movement because unless we help and contribute, even if it's a little bit, it's not going to go anywhere. And I gave a conference where I was the keynote and I emphasized that, yes, we want to raise money and have all this wealth and have all this boundless stuff of things that we can achieve. But it's not going to be done by the power of one. It has to be by the power of everyone. And if we don't lift each other up, how are we going to accomplish that? So thank you for creating the space. And yes, please sign in and help. And, I'm sure we have a lot of younger generation students, right? This could be an awesome time for you to try something.
Right. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I would love like the younger generation, kids that are just graduating college to be a part of Latinas Connect. So definitely. I want people to DM me if they want to be a part of it. It's just a good, honestly, listen, I'm just a person that just wants good and well. Like I just want women and honestly, everybody, all women, right? But especially Latinas here in Milwaukee, I really want us to strive and like to really support each other and just like we need to like really get better at uplifting, supporting, and not feeling that there's lack of and that there's like community, like that saying community over competition. It's like girls, like listen, like I have to say, I'm just saying that from my experience growing up, I was 42 years born and raised, right?
Yeah.
It's different in LA than it is here.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm doing is I'm doing a little part, and I love that there's other groups coming and creating things and doing all these amazing things in Milwaukee. And my thing is let's keep supporting each other.
Yeah.
There's already enough segregation in Milwaukee. Right. We don't need to be segregated within our Latina community. And I always tell people this, think about it, okay? The Jewish community, they are so wealthy. Why? Because they circulate and they support each other's businesses.
Yeah.
So we need to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, I just feel like I feel like this conversation could be like topic at so many events.
Absolutely.
Because it's just like Milwaukee, sometimes I'm like, Milwaukee needs to wake up. Guys, come on. You know what I mean?
We need to get out of that mentality, right? And so let's talk a little bit about that, because obviously you do all this from a great heart, but you're also an awesome professional that does a lot of things behind cameras. Yes. And I don't know that a lot of people know this.
Yeah, they know.
But part of the passion, right, of the whole fashionist and trying to bring people together is because you're also a stylist.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because not only you elevate people and help cultivate and do a collaboration, but you also on your job, right, you bring all those elements into your career. So talk about what does that look like? What is that? What is a day in Patty's day when you're styling and doing that?
So I'm a freelance wardrobe stylist. I mainly what I do is I work in TV commercials, TV ads, commercials, photo shoots. I've done some movies here, some short films. As a matter of fact, have been at the Milwaukee Film Festival. I am the person that creates wardrobe for all the actors, for the commercials and the photo shoots and the ads. And I have to say, when prior to this, first of all, since high school, I was always I just love fashion. It was just my thing. I always thought I was going to be a designer, which I have to say, there's some ideas that I'm getting. I feel like I'm going to be starting next year, and I don't want to get too much into that, but it'll be coming soon. But anyway, I always said I was going to design first. That was my thing. I was I'm going to be a designer.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
But then I got into retail. I became a merchandise manager and then a manager for retail. I kind of did that for a very long time. And then one day I started direct selling. And then from the direct selling, I learned a lot. I would literally sell in people's homes. I started selling candles. Oh. And then from candles, I went to jewelry, and I would do these little pop-ups in people's homes. And then from that, I'm okay, I am going to start my own little pop-up, my own business called Checa Chic Boutique. My last name is Checa. Yeah. And I'm going to do little house parties with selling clothes and handbags, jewelry, accessories. So I started selling in people's homes. The parties were hits. I mean, this is I'm talking probably 20 years ago, long time ago.
Right.
I didn't hear of those parties back in those days. I started doing them, and I called them boutique parties, and these girls would come and they drink wine, and I'd sell all my stuff. From that, then I started selling in a salon, a hair salon, the girls that actually did my hair, and I would sell with them Fridays, Saturdays, and that started. Then the next thing you know, I'm okay, I want to open my store. It was always a dream since I was since I was in junior high school. I opened my store, which I had for 5 years, and I loved it. Then I closed that. Mm-hmm. And then I started getting into freelance wardrobe styling in LA and Hollywood. So I did a couple of projects there. Then we moved here. So I honestly didn't think that there was going to be work here. I'm they probably don't even film here.
It's so damn cold.
I'm oh my God. No, I was oh my God, do they even film in Milwaukee? I'm they probably don't even do that here. So I'm I'm going to have to look maybe in Chicago. Right. So I started looking, I researched, I found at that time it was called Cream City Casting. Yeah. Satora owns that, and she's my good friend. And now it's called Ancada. Okay. Which, by the way, if you ever want to be on TV commercials, you guys go to their website and you can audition. It's open to anybody. Nice. So I reached out to them. I said, hey, I moved here from LA. Can you connect me with some people? And long story short, they actually came to my house because I said, hey, do you guys need a location for filming for commercials? They're like, yes, we're always looking for houses. They came to my house, loved my house, took pictures. Next thing you know, I have a film crew of like 50 people in my house filming a commercial. From that little shoot in my house, one of the producers, I told her, I said, listen, I'm a freelance. Like, do you know anybody? She's like, matter of fact, they need help on a movie. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. So that's kind of where I started making the connection, because in what we do, you can't find these jobs online. You can't apply online.
Right.
You have to know people.
So word of mouth.
You have
referrals.
to know producers and production companies and production managers. So I kind of started meeting people that way. And the next thing you know, I'm like, oh my gosh, they actually do work here.
There's actually a market here.
There's actually a market here. And it was crazy because I was like, wow, they actually, I'm talking about everything, Culver's, Cousin Subs, the hospital, Children's Hospital, Advocate Aurora. And the big one that I've done here is I do a lot of Nike shoots with Giannis. I do Nike shoots with Giannis every year.
How awesome
which
is
is so freaking awesome. I've worked with Bobby Portis.
Do you like look at him like, I probably need a ladder to just
oh my God, he's huge. He's a monster and he's really sweet. Very quiet, actually, very shy. So I do I'm like, Nike's coming to Milwaukee. Okay, this is pretty cool because they come here to film for Nike because he lives here. Yeah. So I've worked with like him and Bobby Portis, and I worked with Aaron Rodgers. And I just recently worked with Jordan Love for the Packers for Keurig, the coffee machine. Yeah. Which it's not out yet. And I normally, we're not allowed to share photos or anything until the ad is out. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I do a little bit of everything. I love it. Like an LA production team was just in town last week, and they found me because they asked, like, hey, and so then they refer.
But you build your own brand at this point, right? Because your work speaks for itself,
right? So, so with freelance, basically, what it is people have to, the producers have to know who you are. They have to like your work, and then you get different producers call you all the time to do these TV commercials or these ads. But I just did like a big shoot for Honda.
Oh my God.
And I can't talk about that either because it's not out yet, but I'll tell you.
And when this goes live, like we'll put an endorsement in there. I expect something from all these brands that you're throwing out there. I'm just putting it out there like, hello.
Right. So basically that's what my life is that I work on these shoots, sometimes for 10 days, sometimes for 5 days, sometimes for 3 days. And I dress all the actors in front of the camera. I dress you. I create what you're going to look like. I make sure that you look fabulous in front of the camera. I love being behind the camera. So I'm always standing behind the director, and he's got a little screen. Yeah. And I'm looking to make sure that your collar's right.
Oh my God. Am I triggering you, Patty?
No.
So my big red, like,
I love it. No, I love your red earrings. I love it. That just shows you have a big heart. I love it. And I just love it. I love I'm such a creative person. Naturally, I just create. So I just love creating wardrobe. That is my thing. That is like my love, my passion. Yeah. I love being on set behind the camera people. Like that is my happy place. Like I love it.
But I hope you know that you have such a light that I hope you do realize that you are amazing in camera.
Oh my God, you're so sweet.
And
Xochitl, like
so maybe think about in the future, I'm just going to put the pitch out there as you start getting more into your styling. And we were talking this offline. Like you also do like personalization, because I was like, I'm always struggling with what I want and the colors and the patterns. And I'm like, oh my God, I have a friend that does it. Why haven't I thought about reaching? Like, do you also do things like that?
Right. And so so this is funny. I know, and I'm trying to get better at this. Okay. So as social, and you've seen me in the social. Yeah. Okay. I am a super social butterfly. Okay. I'm also a bit of an introvert person where I don't like to be in front of the camera.
Sam and I think defined it as ambivert. I think it's like the middle of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like
it's the weirdest thing. Yeah. It's the weirdest thing. I'm like, they're like, Patty, you should have this and a podcast. And I'm like, no, but I don't want to, it's weird. Yep. Like even coming here, I was a little nervous. I was like, oh my God, like, can you give me the questions beforehand? But no, so I'm a personal stylist. So when I'm not, I always say that working in production is my bread and butter, girl. Yeah. Like that is my jam.
Yeah.
But when I'm not busy, then I'm available for personal styling. I could style you. I could come to your house and do a closet edit.
Once I clean my closet,
Yes.
I'm gonna totally bring you, and you're. I should mentally prepare, probably, right? That you're probably gonna get rid of half of my closet.
I get rid of a lot of stuff. People are always, and I always tell people, listen, I am a very honest person.
Yeah.
I'm very straight up.
I love it.
I will come with 2 racks, and we have one rack where we get rid of, and I have the other rack where it's kind of like maybe. I mean, I do that, and I love it. People, so I am available for personal styling, and I hope maybe when you post this, you can share my pages. But
absolutely,
if people are interested, I can style you from anything. I could style you for a wedding. I could help you update your wardrobe for the fall. I could help you wardrobe for any season, right? I could, let's say you're going on vacation and you're like, oh my God, what do I wear? Girl, give me a call and I will help you put those outfits together.
That's me. Like every time I was like, but I'm going here. What should I be wearing? And then I'm checking the weather and then I'm like, oh, but I end up packing stuff that I'm never wearing. And then I end up buying stuff down there because it's like nothing I pick is what I actually want. So I love it.
And what I love to do, and I need to, get better about posting it on my, that's another Instagram, my styling page, right? Is showing more of that work. But I notice here, I love helping, I'm gonna be honest, I love helping a mom that has lost her touch and is just like, I don't know what to wear anymore. Like I lost myself through, right? Like I love to help the moms that are like, just like, please help me that. And I help a lot of business professional women.
Yeah.
I do a lot
I need
of
help
that
at the,
for a photo shoot. So you need like a beautiful outfit for a photo shoot. Like I love doing that. Like just let me know and I'll help you.
So now you guys know. So I'm going to read this really quick statistic because speaking about, like fashion and we see like, so right now with all the fashion coming back, like from the 70s, the bell buttons and all of that. And I'm like, oh my God, I love the style. So it's interesting because right now in the US, like the beauty industry is valued at approximately 51.9 billion just in 2024. I can't even like comprehend those numbers because it's ridiculous how much we spend in fashion. Like as a matter of fact, I'm a fan of Shein and I place orders like every, I don't know how often. And it's crazy because I like wherever I go, like I'm a fan of TJ Maxx and Ross and Marshalls.
So am I.
And it's dangerous every time I go, right? Like it's a growing industry. It's not going to go anywhere.
Right.
So this is like a perfect thing in a niche. But yeah, you definitely need to like, I see some of the work that you do and I'm like, oh my God, how did you come up with that? Because like you're so creative, like the colors, the patterns.
I love it. And I always do it based on obviously your personality and because we don't all dress the same. Okay. And I do it based on like your shape. Yeah. I do it based on
that's the biggest things. Finding stuff or like hips.
Right.
Latinas like me, right? Like
we're curvy.
Like you're curvy, but like nothing's on its place, but everything is out of proportion. Right. Like how do you do that?
And I always say, and I always tell people, listen, my thing is this: you can look fabulous in an outfit under 50 from Marshalls, and you can look fabulous wearing designer. Spending hundreds of dollars. You can go to Shein and spend under $100 and look fabulous. My thing is never think that just because it's not designer that it's not fabulous.
Right.
I can make anyone look fabulous.
Oh, I've seen it.
TJ Maxx and Marshalls. And people are always asking me, where'd you get that? Marshalls. No, you didn't. Yes, I did.
And here's the secret.
Like it's crazy.
I love thrifting.
Okay. Yes. And let me tell you, and thrifting is a huge thing right now. And there's a lot of great consignment stores that are like, you can go in there and buy a little bit more of the higher end designer. Are you kidding me? Like I always tell people, listen, you can go to Goodwill and find the cutest stuff.
Oh yeah.
So you don't have to spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I work with any budget. If you're like, you know what, Patty, I just want stuff from TJ Maxx or Marshalls. I want H&M, or you know what, let's go to Chicago and let's go to Nordstrom and Bloomingdale's and Saks with, hey, I can do whatever. And I will make you look fabulous at any price point.
I know you will. Oh my God. So I love it. Right. Let's pivot a little bit more into your personal life.
Okay.
So you're married.
Yes. I'm married with I've been with my husband since I was 18. So I want to throw that out there. So I think it's about 34, 35 years. Yeah. Crazy. And we have 2 kids. Anais, She's my 27-year-old.
The one that stayed
She's
in California.
She's a teacher. And my son is 22, which actually will be 23 in a couple days.
So you're
and he's at home.
So are you like soon to be an empty nester?
So, okay, so it's crazy because I was an empty nester for the last 3 years.
Right.
Yeah, lot of changes. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you want to.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Let's go through that because I'll share.
Okay.
My oldest is
Right.
going to be 22 in a few weeks.
Okay.
And same thing, right? Like when she went off to college, she goes to Carroll, which is 20 minutes from my house. Okay, let's just start with that. I was a mess.
20 minutes.
It was a denial for so long. And she was like, Mom, I'm just 20 minutes away. And I'm like, I know, but why can't you stay home? And
Xochitl, it's such a Latina thing.
It
I have
is.
to say,
It
culturally, I have to say,
Yeah.
I think it's a Mexican mom thing. We have a hard time letting our kids go.
I still have a hard time. So she's been on her
Right.
own right. She's a senior this year. She'll be
Right.
graduating college. And I still can, right? Like she has her own apartment now and
Right.
her bedroom is still intact. Let's just put it that way, right? My son, who's visiting us in the studio today, turned 18 this summer and he's just started at the technical college.
Okay.
And it's already like, oh, a couple more years. I'm going to become independent. And I'm already like, no, you can stay as long as you want. No rush, right? But how is that like thinking and preparing, right? Like you went through this, but you left her in California. I can't even imagine. And now your son, right? Like
Right.
how has that been for you?
So it's crazy. So when we left LA, I remember, of course, I was crying. I was so sad. And I'll be honest, I think I was crying more because she was staying behind, to be
Right.
honest with
Yeah.
you. If I look back, I was crying because we were leaving her. And I just was leaving my house that
Like
I
the
love
guilt
so much.
almost of
Right.
like, wow, I'm abandoning my
Right.
child type of thing.
Yeah, and she was 18. She was going to college. But I remember her saying, Mom, like, don't be sad. Like a lot of my friends are going away for college, except you guys are leaving me.
Right.
So I had a hard time with that.
Yeah.
So that transition, right? Then it's just us three here with no family, right? So
Yeah.
I was just a hot mess,
Yeah.
you can imagine. And then Sebastian was very sad because now he has no sister at home.
Right.
So that was hard.
Right.
People don't talk about this, but empty nesting feels exactly like that word, empty.
Yeah. It's a grieving process.
It's
that
so
we don't talk
crazy.
about.
I'm like, okay, why didn't my mom ever share this with me? Or why haven't I heard of like you don't really talk about it till you get there, right? You see everyone posting, oh, their kids are going to college. Everyone's so happy. We're happy, but we're deep down, we're freaking
What you
crying.
don't see is when we close the door and we drive the car.
Right.
We had mess.
So I'll never forget, Sebastian did 1 year at UWM, then transferred to Madison, and I'll never forget. I was like, telling all my friends, oh my God, I'm so happy that he's going away to college, so excited. Then the day came, we're dropping him off, and I was literally bawling like a baby. And he's like, Mom, why are you crying? I said, I'm just so sad. He's like, Mom, I'm only an hour and Madison, an hour and a half. But I was just like, oh my God, like what?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to lie, and I'm going to keep this real. It's very hard because I think, and I may be wrong, but as a Latina, I think Mexican moms, we live for our children.
Yeah.
It's all about our
Latinas
kids.
in general.
We just, it's all about our kids, right? And then our husbands kind of go to the back a little bit.
They become second priority.
Right.
Or third or fourth.
Okay. So Sebastian left. I had my dog at that time. Thank God for him. I don't have him anymore. Poor thing passed away. So I remember dropping him off, feeling so sad. And I remember literally my house was so quiet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, like I'm used to making him breakfast.
Yeah.
I'm used to him walking in and out, talking, Mom, what is there? What are we going to have? What are we going to have for dinner? La la. Now there's nothing. My husband's at work all day. He works like 50 hours a week. I'm freelance, so I'm not always working, right? I get project to project. I was like, okay, this house feels really empty.
Mm-hmm.
So I just went through again. I was crying. I was like, oh my God, this is awful. This is awful. And I was really sad. I'm the type of person that I'm like, okay, I'm going to snap out of this, but I'm going to go through it for a minute.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I need to listen to some podcasts.
Yeah.
So I started researching empty nesting podcasts, found a bunch of them, doctors, therapists, and I just started listening to them. And then I have to say, when my husband would get home, I would put on the happy face because he just doesn't like to see me that way. Okay.
Right.
So I was just like literally kind of suffering, like kind of sad in silence. And I was just going through it. And I swear I was like, okay, this is not good. Yeah. Like, I don't know, like I need to get another 4 dogs or something. Like I can't.
Some plans.
So I don't know. Like I need to do, like, this is crazy. But the more I listened to the podcast, Xochitl, honestly, it really helped me.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because a lot of those podcasts were like, listen, don't do anything crazy.
Yeah.
Don't get a divorce. Like, cause you're like, people go through a lot of changes. Yeah. You almost have to reconnect with your husband. Okay.
Yeah.
And again,
you guys have to meet all over again.
Right. And like, I was just like, the funny thing is that my husband was so happy. He was like, yes, we're empty nesters. We can do whatever we want.
And you kind of resent them from that, I have to say, because you're like, how can you? That's our daughter.
Right. And they're like, fine. And then we are like,
because we're the emotional ones.
Right. And I'm just like, oh my God, why are you so happy? But I'm not happy.
Yeah.
He's like, oh my God, like, oh my God, maybe you're too much. I'm like, no, I'm not too much. Listen, we carry them for 9 months.
Yeah.
Like
our bond is like undescriptible. It has no measure. And
right.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic.
So I just was like, yeah, no, it was, I'm not going to lie. It was a very sad moment for me. I cried a lot. I worried about him because I'm like, well, like, of course he's going to eat at the cafeteria or whatever, but he's not going to have home cooked meals anymore. Right. So should I cook and drive them up there? I'm like,
I think
no.
It's more the process of us realizing like, wow, they don't need me no more. They're going to go out there and we prepare them for this, but it's hard to like get to that. Right. So thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. And I know a lot of people will relate because I feel like right now, like our generation, I have a lot of friends going through that right now. So it's good to touch on those points and know there's a community. There's Latinas Connect, right? There's Patty that can come and style you. Because I feel like after this, I was like, wait a minute. I actually have an extra bedroom that I could do something with it, right? So now I'm thinking, I was like, maybe this is my closure that I need. And I'll bring you over so you can help me style it into something.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be, it's good to fill it out and talk about it. Right. I know there's a community of a lot of us that are going through that. So, like
just know that you're going to feel it. It's not easy. Yeah. It's hard. And I'm going to say you do have to reconnect with your husband because it's like you're just always doing things for your kids, taking them their sports, taking them here, taking them there. And then when they're gone, you're like, oh shit, now it's just me and him. Yeah. So now you just, that's it.
Or those that are single, you and the dog, you and the walls, you and whatever.
Right.
Find something to do.
Right. But I have to say, listening to those podcasts and those therapists, and I even listened to like spiritual and Christian podcasts, honestly helped me through it. And I have to say, don't be patient. And it even said, wait a year. It's going to take time. And I have to say, you're going to get out of it. And let me tell you, now he just graduated in May. So he's back, right? So I was empty for 3 years. Now he's back, but he says he's going to be leaving in 2 years. So let's see what happens there. But just like what I realized is now it's our turn when they're gone is we have to do stuff for ourselves. Yeah. And I'm a big, I'm just all about, we need to really like self-care and self-love and like do stuff.
And this is for women, right? Because even I talked a lot about
even Latina women, because we tend to do everything for everybody else, for our husbands and our kids. Yeah. And we always put ourselves last.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those that are, because I have a lot of friends too, and I know we're coming up on time, I have a lot of friends that have younger children. They're just starting that. Right. And I ran and listened to a couple where it's like, oh my God, like I've gained so much weight. I don't even style the way I used to. I don't do my makeup. I'm so busy. I barely have time to feed the kids. And I'm like, take a pause, take a break, find those moments and those connections, even if it's through social media, to find others, but don't disconnect. Because it will consume you and it will project into your children. So you have to self-love. You have to remember that, because if you're not strong enough for yourself, how can you be strong for others? Right. I always say, and I'm like doing this new cups here that we just got for Transcendencia en Acción. For those that will watch the YouTube video, you can see it in the video. Very cute. But I always say you cannot pour from an empty cup. Right. And so I like to remind everyone that, Patty, right, this is inspiring movement that you've started with Latinas Connect in the platform, right? It's more than just styling. I think it's loving yourself, loving your whole self, loving your body, your style, everything that comes with it, and having that platform. I'm so amazed for everything you do.
Oh,
So
thank you, Xochitl.
what is next for you? What are you excited about? Like you'll like to share with and leave people with?
So I will continue. There's some changes that'll be coming to Latinas Connect, I have to say, in 2025.
Okay.
I feel like change is good.
Yeah.
You can't always keep it the same.
Yep.
This year I focused a lot on networking events and all that stuff. But there's going to be some changes in Latinas Connect. So
Can't wait.
There's going to be some changes for 2025. My styling the styling business, my wardrobe that I do here, I love it. And honestly, me and my husband are just now enjoying traveling. Like we love to travel.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Milwaukee has been very good to me.
Yeah.
And I've met some amazing people, including you. And so I'm just super grateful that, honest to God, that I feel like God had a plan for me.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that I went with it.
Yeah.
And that I just literally was like, okay, God, let your will be done with my life. I'm going to go with what you're doing here.
Yeah.
And I have to say, it's been a blessing. So if you're going through something and you think there's just trust that sometimes change is good. Change is good. So I'm just excited to be in Milwaukee, and I think I'm just grateful, honestly, for the relationships that I've built here in Milwaukee.
And we're so blessed that you made your way here, that you came and built that community. We just had an Aqua Zumba. Those are some type of the events, right, that you put together. We've done the vision boards. Right. We've done other things, and this is the platform. So again, follow Latinas Connect on Instagram and Facebook. We will be putting all the links on the episodes as well. Reach out to my beautiful amiga whenever you need some styling tips. I know I will, because
if anybody needs help.
I tell my kids, yo me colgo hasta el molcajete, and sometimes I'm like, it's just a little too much. You gotta tone it down.
I love to help women look fabulous, right? I mean, it's obviously it starts with inside, but I love to help the outside.
I know. Hey, and the outside is for protect, so I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
For sharing your experience, for giving some wisdom to those that, might need to hear it. I'm always like, whoever this touches and reaches, that's all we want, right? To share a story so that others know that you're not alone. We're here for you. Again, my name is Doctora Xochitl Yadira, my hermosa amiga Patty Checa. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Love you, girl.
Thank you.
See you next time in the next episode. Don't forget to tune in your favorite podcast, whatever you use. We are in all the platforms, and then the YouTube video as well. So we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Adios.